Alright, so for today I wanted to do something a little more casual than usual. I recently became aware of this film, Fritz the Cat. It's an American adult animation from 1972 featuring anthropomorphic animals. Apparently it's the first American animation to ever be rated adults only, so it's certainly not for kids. The movie is based on a comic strip by Robert Crumb, which was dissatisfied with this movie, saying it was way too horny and twisted, and regrets ever allowing it to be made. So I thought it would be fun to prank myself by reviewing this piece of depraved media for your entertainment, while also discussing its cultural tropes and significance. I'm going to censor out the vomit-inducing nudity and sex, of course, so eye bleach isn't mandatory. And just to be clear about this, I'm not making this video out of some hatred towards people who like anthropomorphic animals, aka furries. I got nothing against people who just have a hobby, and I'm well aware that many of them find this kind of sex stuff repulsive just as much as we do. So with that being said, let's dive into the grease. Enjoy my suffering. Roll intro.
Hey, yeah, the 1960s, happy times, heavy times.
Okay, so the movie starts and we see these construction workers, and this pig dude just starts randomly ranting about kids these days and whatnot.
Oh, this is the thing now. Free love. We get away from the original point. What we're trying to find is why these bastards right. Because they did both.
He brings up a bunch of potentially interesting topics, but ends up making no real point and we never see these characters again. Then, this guy just pulls it out and starts pissing while the title card shows. What a fitting opening.
Sheesh, what a mob in the park today. God, the place is crawling with phonies.
Yeah, high school punks.
Man, you know, those creeps are always here on weekends, man.
Yeah, you guys are so much better than those f***ing normies, am I right? Also, you've probably already noticed by now, but the voice acting and sound design are absolute shit. I mean, this is 1972, but by then Disney and Looney Tunes and anime studios already figured out how to pull this kind of stuff off well, so why is it like this? Hey, furry John Lennon, is that you? After that, a bunch of hot fairy chicks come by and the gang tries to impress them with shoddy music, but they fail because of a black guy that was hanging around, who is represented by a spade.
Dumb chicks.
Easily impressed by spades.
It's the thing, man.
Yeah, you sure showed those bitches, Fritz. Women today would rather hang out with stupid spades than spend their time with superior felines such as yourself. This is the society we live in.
I've read everything James Baldwin's written. He has a true sense of the problems of black people.
I worked for Head Start for free last summer. Black kids are so much groovier.
I went to a couple of Black Panther meetings. The time for nonviolent revolution is past. More power to the people.
I'm taking a course in African studies at school. I had no idea you people were so civilized.
So yeah, this is kind of satirizing progressive people who may have good intentions but have a sort of patronizing attitude towards racial minorities. It's kind of funny for a bit until the spade decides to assume these girls were like hitting on him and declares he is gay before running off, which Fritz finds hilarious for some reason. I find it pretty damn tasteless. Like, this setup could have actually been funny, but no, they had to make it weird and bitter. Anyway, Fritz jumps on the opportunity and decides to bullshit his way into bedding these girls like the gentleman he is by exploiting their hippie new age beliefs. They crash the bathroom of some shady stoner hangout and it quickly turns into, you guessed it, a furry orgy. A cop duo shows up who are represented by, what else, pigs. Of course it's f***ing pigs. So the hippies decide to crash Fritz's bathroom sex party and it's really bad. It's really, really bad, man. I'm gonna need some brain bleach after this.
Do you hear anything, Ralph?
It sounds like a bunch of degenerates in there.
You said it, pal. So a bunch of uninteresting things happen and there's a flood and they end up in a synagogue of all places. okay, I guess. Things just sort of happen in this movie. To be fair, it seems that the original comic this is based on was kinda random too, but having the movie be the same kinda defeats the point of this whole adaptation thing, don't you think? The film is basically just a goofy Saturday morning cartoon, just longer and with tits. Like, are they even trying? So they joke about Jews for a while and a bunch of more goofy cartoony shit happens, and then Fritz goes on a rant about intellectuals and college and shit. Like, what?
Oh, yes, I remember when the time when it was all very inspiring and enlightening, all this history and literature and sociology shit. You think learning is a really big thing, and you become this big f***ing intellectual and sit around trying to out-intellectual all the other big intellectuals.
This is another thing this movie likes to do. It just drops random-ass monologues and rants on you out of nowhere, basically. I don't really care for the message itself, but what do you think Fritz thinks is a meaningful substitute for college? Choose your answer now.
Making all of them.
You won't f***ing believe how lazy this next part is. Up until this point, it's pretty clear that the movie isn't big on the whole having a budget thing. They reused a lot of things. The movie has a ton of these slow panning shots of static or mostly static backgrounds. They obviously tried to save on frames, and I get it. Animation is crazy expensive. Most animated movies that have stood the test of time were made on outrageous budgets. Fritz was new and experimental. It was based on an underground comic strip. It was the first animated film to ever receive the adults-only rating in America, so I didn't expect it to be on par with the greatest. I was just slightly annoyed by the problems up until now, but man, there is a line that shouldn't be crossed, and they freaking skateboarded past it. After Fritz burns down his dorm, we slowly pan away from the scene, and then the movie cuts to this looping animation of a character while music plays in the background and the next static scene slowly zooms in. It takes nearly 3 minutes before we see animation again. I am not kidding. This movie literally tells you, haha, get retard. You wanted animation, but it was me. Poverty.
I am dead serious.
How the hell did this actually end up in the movie? Did nobody think, wait, this seems wrong, right? I mean, the whole movie is wrong, but this part in particular, like, I feel like I got scammed and I didn't even pay for this trash. I hate it regardless. I guess nobody talks about this piece of dog shit for a reason, even though it was technically commercially successful. Anyway, we're in this bar now, and it's like an African-American bar. I don't know, man, I'm not American. I tried looking it up, but I got nothing. Americans, can you confirm this? Were race-exclusive bars actually a thing over there? That is wild, man. So anyway, the movie wastes some more time. Fritz meets this guy and they ramble together about race relations and whatnot for a while. Again, with zero subtlety or tact.
Well, see, yes, indeed. See, my soul is tortured and tormented by this racial crisis.
No shit.
Some more uninteresting shit happens, and then they steal a pimp-ass looking car, and Fritz breaks basically every traffic law in existence. So essentially, they just predicted GTA. So the car breaks down and they end up in another stoner hangout, and this lady gets Fritz high as shit on weed, and then there's a psychedelic sequence that obviously borrows a lot from Disney's Dumbo, specifically the pink elephants on parade scene, but here it's like the Chinese budget ripoff of that, so it's not nearly as good or creative. Fritz tries once again to bang the closest furry chick in his general area, which happens to be the lady who got him stoned, and my god does it go on and on, like, am I watching literal porn right now? You won't believe how much footage I had to cut here, like, seriously, what the f***? After doing the deed, Fritz has a revelation and decides to go start a socialist uprising. Seriously, I'm not kidding, that's basically what he does.
Revolt! Revolt, you thick-skulled idiots! You have carried heavy burdens for the bosses. You have sweat your lives away for the bosses. The bosses, they ride around in limousines. Bosses, they're eating strawberries and cream. Come the revolution, there are gonna be no more limousines. means come the revolution, there are gonna be no more strawberries and cream, see? There he is! He's the one who keeps the bosses in power! He's the one who's holding you down! The spiked boot of capitalism! The iron thumb on the heads of the proletariat!
Predictably, the whole thing turns into a violent riot and there's tanks and fighter jets and whatnot. The whole place turns into a war zone. Do you think they overdid it a little? Okay, so now we're in the final stretch of the film, and I'm sorry to inform you, but it only goes further downhill from here. This movie just likes to constantly outdo itself in terms of trashiness, and they truly saved the worst for last. We get introduced to this character, Winston. She and Fritz are in a relationship, although obviously it's not the normal and healthy type. Anyway, they escape town in her car, as Fritz is presumably running away from the authorities after what happened. Around the same time, we get introduced to this drug-addicted Nazi rabbit called Blue, and his horse girlfriend Harriet, who is the current obligatory sexualized character in this part of the film. Winston's car does an oopsie. The movie throws in an animal abuse joke that would radicalize PETA into becoming animal ISIS if they ever saw it today. Then they discover the car was just out of gas, so they fight a little and Fritz ultimately decides to abandon his partner in the middle of the desert. Fritz realizes that he is a hobo with nowhere to go before running into our blue supremacist rabbit, who recruits him for the revolution. They go to this hideout with a bunch of shady lizard people, and then Harriet bothers Blue a little, so he retaliates by literally violently assaulting her, with everyone else cheering him on. A fairly known tradition of crackhead culture, of course. The horse gets so sexualized in this part, in a very violent, distorted manner, like whoever wrote this is clearly in the head big time. The lizard people join in and they basically group torture her while she's half naked, and later one of them says that they all got their rocks off that day. So geez, did this movie really need 3 long disgusting sex scenes in addition to a few minor things that I haven't even mentioned? You really had to throw in this BDSM rape shit as well? Really? You filled the movie with a bunch of fillers just so you could do this? It's not even mildly important to the plot, which is next to non-existent anyway. This revolution group has a plan to blow up some power plant for social progress or some shit, but Fritz is obviously reluctant. They arrive at the location. Fritz has a change of heart, but the lizard chick bails on him, and he gets caught in the explosion. One long panning shot of a static image we already saw earlier, and we get to the final scene at the hospital. Fritz's room is guarded by an officer for obvious reasons, and the 3 furry chicks from the beginning come to visit him for some reason. I don't know, man, this movie isn't big on the whole sensical writing thing. Anyway, Harriet is here too, I guess, because Fritz kinda defended her when she was being tortured, but not really. Kinda reminds me of Sakura from Naruto, because it's almost impressive how they're both completely and utterly useless. Anyway, Fritz starts his final rambling session by telling everyone how fulfilling his life has been, and then this happens.
If there's one thing I've learned, it's you get over here, and you get down there like that, and now you blonde, you get under here. That's right.
Yep, there's another full-on orgy scene. I had to cut out like half of it. Roll credits. Do I feel like a hero yet? No, I don't. This movie makes Chernobyl look like milk spillage. I'll try to be as fair as possible with the final verdict here, but let's start with the obvious. This thing should not have been a feature film. Its runtime is 78 minutes, which is definitely on the short side, nearing the minimum length required for a feature by some standards. Plus, need I remind you that they still used a bunch of filler and saves. The animation quality is fine for a TV movie or series, but it's just not good enough for the big screen.
The voice acting sucks ass. They had regular ass people record lines for this, alongside actual professionals, and it shows. It really shows. You can immediately tell who is a voice actor and who isn't. And on top of that, the audio mixing sucks. It's kinda art house-ish and unconventional. I bet they thought they were clever, but damn, it's just not very pleasing, let me tell you. The characters are just nothing. They're stock tropes, basically. The music is alright though. Nothing to burn onto a CD or write home about, but it fits the overall theme and era. It's a bunch of psychedelic rock, some funky beats, some synth stuff thrown in there. It ain't bad. Visually, the more surreal stuff they did was the most interesting to me. It's not that well done, but they get points for trying. In terms of writing, it's pretty bad. Like, it all just feels like a loose collection of ideas. Nothing really brings it together. There's no coherency. However, there's this one line from the film that kinda stuck with me. Let me give you some context. In the part where Fritz goes to the power plant to blow it up for the revolution, he talks about how Harriet loves, and that's what really matters and all of that. And then he says this.
The love you give is equal to the love you get. Well, it, I ain't doing it.
Line's pretty thought-provoking, right? Well, after it got stuck in my head, I looked it up and it's a reference to a Beatles song. Of course it is. In any case, this can be interpreted in a number of ways, but in my view, the original song meant it in a sort of existential way, like the more passion and worth you put into life, the more you get in return, figuratively speaking. However, the way Fritz used it is kinda different because of the context. Crumb, the comic's author, hated this part in particular, denouncing it as redneck and fascistic. That's a little bit of a stretch in my view. I find this beat tasteless and tone-deaf mostly. Their goal with this was obviously to troll the libs for the lols. They kinda already tried to do that multiple times in this film. It has a pretty clear disdain for left-wing politics, but up until this scene, those jabs just kinda felt sorta off, but now it just radiates cringe. They're swiping away at empty air at this point. I don't want to get too much into the politics here because A, I'm not that interested in what Fritz the Cat has to say in that regard, and B, I'm not an expert on American politics, but I'll just say this. For a movie that mocks far-left politics, it sure doesn't care to indulge in the very same radical ideas and lifestyles that it seemingly mocks. It just feels like Fritz the Cat wants to eat the cake and leave it whole. But that's just my take, of course. Again, this movie is not coherent. It just feels like they edited a bunch of ideas together and called it a day. So, now that the psychological evaluation is complete, let's get to the final verdict. I give Fritz the Cat 75% on the mental illness scale. This film clearly suffers from acute degeneracy disorder and cognitive dissonance as well. My recommendation is transfer it to the psych ward for further treatment. Sheesh, glad that's over with. What else is on? Wait. There's a sequel?